listeners, readers, YouTube enthusiasts. Welcome to another episode of I'll Read That, the show where your stories get heard. Whether you're an unpublished author, self published independent, or just someone with a story to tell, this is your space to shine. In each episode, I'll read your submitted story aloud, giving it a voice, a platform, and most importantly, you a chance to grow. You'll get feedback from fellow writers, other readers, and creatives to help you sharpen your craft and take your storytelling to the next level. So, if you've been waiting for someone to say, I'll read that, then you found your place. Submit your story, get heard, and let's grow together. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you got something worth sharing, you already know. So we are in chapter 14 of Thassodar Jax, Galactic Ranger by David Jace. His information can be found in the description below. Species log. Human Jax, Earth 21011. The human species, perhaps as a side effect of their hyper energy levels, has a great flair and love of the dramatic. Most things are extremist in nature. Even one of their most respected writing begins, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times." For humans, there's very little in the middle. Normal, in most situations, is to be avoided. There must be a way for an individual to be special or unique, whether that unique quality stems from positive or negative attributes. On the other side of the coin, humans are drawn to the dramatic as well. They enjoy what is known as gossip, information about others spread illicitly. They are unable to turn away from watching a disaster, even if they know what is coming. Rare is the human that acts in the situation instead of observing it. She almost died. Thassodar was entrusted with the protection of the whole planet, of the entire human species, from outside threats, but this was different. She had been right in front of him. He knew her name. It was his fault she was even there. Losing any human to Grote's mad scheme would feel like a failure. Losing her would have been something much bigger. A disaster, a catastrophe, a tragedy. He wasn't sure if there was an English word for it. Her head rested against the window of the Jeep as she slept. The machine had taken a lot out of her. It had nearly taken everything out of her, he reminded himself. His mind replayed the events like a nightmare he couldn't forget. It was a feeling he hadn't felt in a very long time, and never wanted to feel again. He tried to tell himself that it wasn't his fault. He didn't ask her to come with him. He didn't invite her into the battle. He tried to keep her safe. He tried to keep her out of harm's way. Valentina tried to turn over in her sleep. Since she was sitting in the car with her head against the window, it merely resulted in a frustrated groan and something falling out of her pocket. Thassodar picked it up. A wallet. Her driver's license through the little window gave him her full name, birth date, blood type, and home address. Perfect. Thassodar entered the address into the Jeep's guidance system and took the next exit. It was on the south side of Fort Worth, a half-hour's drive in the late afternoon traffic. She would be safe at home. He wouldn't have to worry about protecting her, about shielding her, about failing her, or watching her die. As he drove, his thoughts continued to spiral. How could he protect the entire planet if he couldn't keep a single human safe? Granted, she was a surprisingly determined, headstrong human. Yes, surprising was definitely the word for her. Hard to believe she had faced down Hermes, and even held her own against Grote for a while. She seemed fearless, or perhaps she just didn't know enough to be afraid. She didn't know what these criminals were capable of. He glanced over at her as she slept. Her hair was tangled, her skin was a lighter shade than it had been, he thought. That was probably a bad sign, but he'd never done very well in xenobiology or interspecies first aid. Her trendy jeans were ripped. Well, parts of them probably came from the store ripped. That was an odd trend in human fashion, but this rip was not intended to be there, nor fashionably placed. There was dried mud on her jacket and smudged on her face. The Jeep hit a pothole and her head thunked against the glass. She groaned but did not wake. Thassodar pulled her head back toward the seat and stroked the passenger seat recline button between them. Her seat slowly laid down. He returned his attention to the road and sped up. The sun was setting in his eyes as he drove west on Interstate 20. He would take her home to safety. His thoughts, however, also sped up and did not feel safe at all. He passed under the 35 interchange and took the exit to Valentina's neighborhood. The houses were small and close together. Colorful clapboard walls with concrete porches and patchy grass held laughing children and broken toys. Tired, smiling parents and rusty cars. This was the world Valentina came from. This is where she should be. Thassodar found the house and pulled up as the streetlights turned on. Valentina woke when she opened her car door. Thassodar, sorry, I must have dozed off. Where are we? You're safe. That's what's important. She climbed out of the jeep and looked around. What are we doing here? She hissed. Hola, mija! A woman emerged from the house with the same color hair as Valentina. She rushed to Valentina's side. Where have you been? We were worried about you. She looked over Valentina's clothes in state. She took her hand, felt her cheeks. What happened? Are you okay? Mom, I'm fine. I lost my phone and things have been busy. She's been through a lot, ma'am, but she just needs some rest and good food. He stuck out his hand in the human custom. I'm Thassodar. He wasn't expecting the hug, but it was both arms and tight. Thank you for bringing our mija home. Thank you for bringing our mija home. Come in, please. I'll make food for everyone. That's not necessary, thank you. I have things that need my attention. He glanced at the back of the jeep where an intergalactic murdered and slave trader was bound and unconscious under a tarp. Valentina glared at him, and her unspoken message was clear. Her mother took him by the shoulder with a similar her mother took him by the shoulder with similar tolerance for objection. No, come in. I cook for you. Least we can do. She led them into the house, one hand on Thassador's shoulder and the other arm around Valentina's shoulders. The main room of the home was bathed in warm light. The sofa, chair, and low table were neither antiques nor new furniture. Thassador suspected multiple generations of their family had owned them. Tiny figures adorned the mantel, religious artwork hung on the walls, cozy-looking blankets were draped on the furniture. The blanket in the chair by the window moved unexpectedly. ¿Quién es tu amigo, cariña? The old woman had sun-wrinkled skin and small black eyes that twinkled with the laughter in the corner of her mouth. Her white hair was pulled back in a tight bun. She ran her eyes from Thassador's head to his feet. Él es guapo. She was speaking Spanish, one of the other dominant dialects of the human language system. Thassador bowed gently toward her, his hands politely folded in front of him. Gracias, honorable señora. Solo soy un defensor amistoso. Valentina stared at him. Where did that come from? I didn't know you speak Spanish. What, you thought English was my first language? He couldn't resist grinning at her. Her grandmother laughed. Me gusta esto. Valentina, go shower and change while I cook. Mr. Tastor can talk with abuela. Valentina glared at him. Promise me you won't leave? Tassador glanced out the window at the jeep. I shouldn't stay long. I've got... I know what you've got. Her tone made it clear it was as much a threat as an acknowledgement. Promise me you won't leave without me. He sighed. I promise not to leave without you knowing it. After all, this was a rare opportunity to be in a family dwelling, and he should make use of it. She seemed to accept his promise and left the room. Her mother went to the kitchen to cook. Thassador turned to the photos on the mantel. The nearest was a young family, mother, father, little girl in pigtails. He should do some research on the name of that hairstyle. Earth pigs had only had one tail each, but the hair was invariably in two distinct braids. That's Valentina with her mother Nina and her father Antonio, said the abuela in Spanish. Is Antonio at work? He asked, also using Spanish. One language was the same as the other for him. Neither were his native Cobol or even the galactic common he'd grown up with. Antonio was a policeman. He died when Valentina was little, killed by a suspect. Really? Thassador leaned in to look closer at the man. I didn't know the man had a proud, hopeful look. I didn't know. The man had a proud, hopeful look about his eyes. The hand resting on Valentina's little shoulder seemed loving and protecting. He must have been a good father. Thassador tried not to superimpose his own father's image on the picture. Valentina was his pride and joy. It was a terrible thing. Nina was very sad and very angry for a long time. She got over it? Time heals. if you let it. Abuela rose from her chair and stood next to him. I finally sat her down and reminded her, hating your enemy does not hurt them, only you. Neither will hate ever revive love. Once she accepted that, she was able to move on. It's not good to be trapped in the past. Thassodar nodded slowly, his eyes moving from the father to the daughter. He recognized that smile. Here is her graduation. Abuela pointed to the next picture over of Valentina in a long black dress. She gave the valedictorian speech. She is very smart girl. Yes, she is. What does she want to be after college? Ella no sabe. Abuela shrugged, still looking at the pictures of their lives in the mantel. Valentina is still searching for her purpose. They looked at the other pictures. Valentina on a bicycle, at the beach, a birthday party. Thassodar pointed to one half hidden behind the others. A motorcycle? That was her father's motorcycle. She convinced her mother to let her learn to ride it after her quinceañera. I was glad when it stopped working. It worried me. Soon Valentina returned from her chambers, cleaned and changed. She wore jeans, a black t-shirt, and a leather jacket. The same jacket he noticed from the motorcycle photo. She kissed her grandmother on the cheek and then turned on Thassodar. Her smile dropped. Tell me we came here so I could get fresh clothes. Thassodar glanced at Abuela, wanting to be careful what he said. She doesn't speak English, so just keep your voice down. Oh, sorry. She doesn't speak English, so just keep your voice down. Why did you bring me home? To keep you safe. There are aliens turning the human race into cell phone chargers, and you think I'm going to sit at home with my mom and be safe? They have to be stopped. She smiled when Abuela looked at her, but her eyes were full of fire. That's my job, he responded through his own forced smile. And I was helping you do your job. I've already saved your butt once, and you wouldn't have captured Groat without me. You need me. You almost died. His fake smile faltered. Why was she being so difficult about this? What was so hard to understand about being somewhere safe? So did you, she growled back. Look, this may be your job, but it's my species, my home. You want me to stay here safe with my family, but I want to be out there, making sure my family stays safe. Now, either you can take me with you and help me, or I can take what I know, strike out on my own, and make trouble for you. Dassler was stunned and hardly knew what to say. Are you threatening me? Only if you think knowledge is a threat. Only if you feel threatened at the thought of me being out there on my own, without your fancy gadgets or advanced knowledge, tracking down Groat's friends myself. She grabbed his arm. Thassodar, please, let me help you. I can do this. Let me help save my own world. Who wants tacos? Her mother Nina returned with a platter of hot food. Gracias, Mom, but we really need to be going. You just got here. Where are you going? We have something for school. Valentina threw Thassodar a look, but he had no idea how to interpret it. We have a science project. Oh, you two have classes together? That's nice. What's your major, Thassodar? I'm sorry, what? Your major. What field are you studying to go into? Thassodar looked at Valentina, but her face was no help. Law enforcement. Oh, that's a dangerous field. You be careful. Did Valentina tell you about... We really do need to be going, Mom, Valentina interrupted. Maybe we could just take a couple tacos for the road. Sure, sure. You kids talk all you want. She hugged Valentina, and then, to his surprise, she hugged him too. Her energy was vibrant and relentless, warm and welcoming. The energy of a mother, he thought. He did not hurry to end the hug, but Valentina was leading him out the door before he knew it. Thassodar, have you forgotten what's in the back of the Jeep? Our science experiment. Oh, yes, of course, he waved behind him. It was nice meeting you. Adios, abuela. The ride back was quiet. It took both of them to drag Groat from the garage to the holding cell down the hall. Thassodar said it was impenetrable, that even this powerful brute wouldn't be able to escape it, at least not anytime soon. He would put in a report and request the pickup of the criminal. It will only take them a couple days to get the paperwork approved, commented Thassodar. He finished sending the request and led the way to the gear room. I guess space government isn't any better than Earth government. Bureaucracy is the sand in the gears of any great machine. Gorfin said that. I believe that Berberock Nebula Peace Treaty. The war only took 3 years, drafting the peace treaty took 10. Valentina shook her head amused and then groaned at the painful response to the action. Thassodar looked back at her, concerned. Are you sure you've recovered? I'll be fine unless you have some high-tech aspirin. Unfortunately, modern medicines haven't been tested on humans, so anything I have to give you may not be safe. Then what do we do now? We get something to eat, and we wake up our prisoner. He opened a drawer and picked up a small square device, selecting a couple of vials from the drawer that looked to fit into it. He slipped the device and the vials into the pocket and went to the kitchen. Thassodar put a deep, empty dish in his space microwave. Borkmek, said Thassodar to his microwave, and turned around to lean against the counter as the microwave lit up and began making his order. I am not, he said as he stared into the steaming microwave, comfortable with the risk you took today. It nearly cost you your life. Yeah, I noticed. It was just a miscalculation. We thought the NEI ray gun would take him down easy, and we didn't know he had protection for it. We'll prepare better next time. Thassodar pursed his lips together and the microwave dinged before he responded. The dish was now full of purple, sticky-looking sticks and what looked like spoiled meat that smelled bad enough to keep Valentina from looking at it too closely. He stepped back and motioned for her to order. Still feeling a little queasy from the tube of light and death, she ordered a chicken soup. Your food smells pretty bad. Is it good? She asked while waiting for her soup. Oh, it's an acquired taste, and certainly not one of my favorites. But for Groat's people, it's a delicacy. Thassodar winked at Valentina with a smirk on his face, except his wink was like 5 fast winks at once. Call it gentle torture. You're giving him his favorite meal? He killed people, Thassodar. A lot of people. That had better at least be his last meal. Valentina, Rangers do not kill helpless captives, regardless of their crimes. They must stand trial and go through the judicial process of the Galactic Council. Then I'll do it. You can't let him get away with it. With what he did. She had tears in her eyes again, but she didn't care. We aren't letting him get away with anything. First, he can be useful to us. The others are still out there, and he has information we need. But Valentina, he came closer and laid a hand on her shoulders. My mentor used to tell me, revenge is never so sweet as life. I didn't understand that for a long time. Groat killed my parents, right in front of me, and I wanted him to pay for that. But nothing he can do can but nothing he can do can bring my parents back. And now I realize my parents would not want me to live a life of anger and resentment. They would want me to live my life, a happy one. I'm sure it's all they ever wanted for me, just like what your family wants for you. She shrugged off his hand. It wasn't fair to bring her family into this. He didn't know her family. Your food stinks, and so does your advice. They stood there for a moment more, quietly. Valentina sipped her soup. Then they returned to the cell, and Thassodar opened the door. He keyed open a hidden compartment and removed 3 sets of handcuffs and a collar. Valentina raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. Groat was lying on the bed that Thassodar had pulled out of the white wall. Valentina noticed that from this side the door was opaque, as white as the rest of the room, but from outside it had been clear. She touched the wall and found it stiff and smooth. Thassodar placed a cuff on each of Groat's wrists and each ankle. He pressed a button on the thick cuffs and they separated from each other. When the cuffs approached the wall, they snapped sharply against it, holding Groat's muscular arms spread against the wall. She could see the ankle cuffs had the same buttons on them. He fitted the collar to Groat's neck and snapped it shut. It had a button that thudded his head against the wall, making Valentina wince. He deserves every bump he gets, she thought. Thassodar removed the darts that were still stuck in Groat's chest and arms, and pulled out the square device he'd gotten from the gear room. He loaded a cartridge and set it beside Groat's neck. Valentina heard a small pop, and Groat jerked. Thassodar moved to the far wall beside Valentina. He touched a line on the wall about 2 feet up and pulled forward 2 blocks for them to use as chairs. He smiled at her as she sat down. Eat up. Our guest should wake soon. She ate quietly, staring at Groat, the murderer of her friend, of Thassodar's parents, a slaver of worlds. How could someone like that ever be forgiven? It was only a few minutes before he stirred. I smell Borkmek, he mumbled before his eyes were open. Yes, and it's quite good. I can get you some if you like. Groat opened his eyes and looked around, tugged his bonds experimentally, and grunted. He turned his attention to Thassodar. What do you want? Want? Thassodar set the food down and stood up, but kept his distance. I have wanted to kill you from the day I met you. I wanted to use every painful device I could find to inflict even a small portion of the suffering of my people on you. I wanted to see you pay for the atrocities you have committed across the galaxy. I want to see my parents again, taste my grandmother's cooking. But none of those things are going to happen today. Make no mistake about what I want, Groat. But let's focus on what I'm asking for. Thassodar paused, but Groat didn't respond. Tell us where the rest of the team is, and what their next target is. Tell us what the plan is, and in exchange, I will feed you anything you like. And I promise you I will not and I promise you will not be harmed before I turn you over to the authorities. You're bluffing. If you hurt me while in custody, you'll go to jail with me. It's against your foolhardy code, and the same code requires you to feed me too. So even your sweet offer is just ship exhaust. He tugged his arms again and looked frustrated. I don't have a code, Valentina slurped her chicken soup. I'm not a ranger, so maybe he can't do anything to you. But I don't have those restrictions. I'm just a subspace species, so I wouldn't know any better. Pretty sure I owe you a couple of painful screams anyways. Groat tried to move his head, but settled for looking aside at her. You survived the chamber. I'm impressed. Scrappy little partner you got there, Ranger. Can I have a knife? Valentina didn't look at Thassodar, just at the grotesque alien who'd killed so many people like he was changing light bulbs in a factory, including her friend. I could cut him once for every person he killed today. That feels like it would be a good start. He looked back at Thassodar. You'd do it, wouldn't you? You'd walk away and let her go at me while I'm all restrained like this. If it was the only way to make you talk, probably. I'd rather feed you, because I'm not the monster you are, Groat. Fine, but you'll have to sweeten the deal just a little. Promise me you'll report that I helped you capture the rest of them and ask for preferred treatment in exchange for my cooperation. Promise me that, and a plate of the Borkmek, and I'll tell you what you want to know. Deal. Thassodar handed Valentina an NEI pistol. If he tries anything, shoot him. Thassodar walked to Groat and released his two lower arms from the wall, keeping the cuffs on him. He handed him the foul-smelling container of Borkmek and returned to the box beside Valentina. Groat snorted and inhaled the smell of the food, savoring it before stuffing a handful into his mouth. Thassodar waited. Valentina returned to her chicken soup. Groat was halfway through the box before he slowed down and wiped his snout with one sleeve. All right, Ranger. Ask your questions. Where are the rest of the escaped criminals? Jakar, Dorsch, Schold, and Hermes, Olympus. They went to meet the boss and hit the next target. That was a couple of Earth hours before you showed up at the facility. Thassodar glanced at his watch. What was the next target? Some festival out in the desert. Lots of Earth drugs and stuff. The festival runs for several Earth rotations, so they wouldn't be missed quickly. When they get back and find the facility is ruined, where would they go next? Groat slurped his food and considered that. Not sure. Maybe one of the other facilities, I guess? Just relocate. Other facilities? Thassodar lost his cool composure a little. What other facilities? Where? Oh, did you think there was only one? Groat smiled a little, enjoying the surprise in Thassodar's face. No, this is a big operation. Been getting set up for decades. Thassodar stood up again. How many are there? I don't know the exact number, a couple dozen maybe, but they're all over the planet. Thassodar opened the door. His voice was calm again, but his fist was clenched. Thank you for your information, Mr. Groat. I will keep our bargain and I will bring you more Borkmek shortly. He let Valentina exit the room and then closed the door behind him. Please serve our guest another box of his dinner, Valentina. I must prepare. Prepare for what? We won't be able to stop them from attacking the festival. They are likely already there, but I can be lying in wait when they return. If they abandon this facility, we have no idea where they'll go next. They must be stopped here, now. He opened the door to the gear room and entered it without another word. Valentina hesitated a moment, but could tell he needed a little space. She went to the kitchen to get more of that foul-smelling space food. She mulled over what Thassodar had said while she waited for the space microwave. All his wants had been past tense. How could he just let it go like that? She dropped it off with their prisoner and joined Thassodar in the gear room. Thassodar turned as she entered. Under his trench coat was a vest of similar material to the jacket he'd given her. The material had a particular sheen to it. He strapped black metal bracers to his forearms and held one out at arm's length, pointed at an empty wall. Then he clenched his fist. A small dart rose up from the gauntlet and fired at the wall, where it struck with an electric scorch mark. Thassodar knelt down and pressed a button on his boots. He leapt from the floor to the table and took another leap to the wall, and ran a few steps sideways on the wall before jumping back down to the ground. He held his left arm in front of himself and tapped another button on the bracer. A glowing blue shield materialized, emanating from the bracer. Do I get any of that cool gear this time? Thassodar looked up at her and smiled. Absolutely. I have to keep my partner safe. Check these out. He pulled a pair of sporty dark wraparound sunglasses from his pocket and held them out to her. She put them on, and information scrolled across her vision about anything she looked at. He reached over and tapped the temple of the sunglasses, and her view shifted into heat vision. She could see Groat in his cell through the wall. Wicked! He plucked a holster off the wall with a pistol-sized weapon in it and handed it to her. Their necklaces block neural electric interruption, so my standard weapons won't be much use. This is a shock dart. It won't be as effective, but it'll get past their necklaces. Close enough to a ray gun, I guess. Thassodar smirked kindly and opened a cabinet, taking out a pair of bracers much like his own. He snapped them into place on her forearms. Thassodar walked out of the gear room, and Valentina followed. He turned to close the door behind them, and Valentina stepped across the hall beside the cell door. Oh, and one more thing. Put your hands over your head, please. Valentina put her arms up, wondering what else he had for her. Thassodar touched something to the bracers, and the gauntlets jerked her hands backward against the outside wall of the cell. I'm sorry, but you're staying here this time. What? Why? Because you almost died last time, and this isn't your fight. The hell it isn't my fight! They're killing my species! They killed my friend! She tugged against the wall, and her wrist didn't budge. Let me down, Thassodar! You need my help! I need to not have another death on my conscience, Valentina, and you need some time to process through your friends, through Jessica's death. You're a very special human. I can't risk them capturing you again, hurting you again. Valentina kicked out at him. This isn't about me getting hurt. It's because you're scared. You're scared you won't be able to protect me. That's not how partnership works. Get back here, damn it. Thassodar turned halfway down the hall. The magnet will give out in about an hour. When it does, please guard Groat until the authorities arrive. He turned and strode down the hall to the garage, his trench coat floating behind him. Damn it, Thassodar! Don't go! You can't go alone! She jerked against the magnets again, and they didn't budge. From the other side of the wall, she heard that guttural grunting laughter again. What are you laughing at, pig boy? He caught you too. We're both prisoners, but I've got food. Valentina rolled her eyes and grumbled. You call that food? She tugged again, and he kept laughing. Stop laughing. Why? Because we're going to take down your buddies, and that smug ambassador too. You're all going to jail. The laughter stopped. A moment later, Groat's voice floated through the wall. What ambassador? Your boss, idiot. The boss isn't an ambassador. Valentina looked over her shoulder if she could see through the wall. Ambassador Viseu? White skin, red eyes, species ambassador? The boss's name is Lomax, human. He's a smuggler. The laughter started again. Ambassador Lomax. That's funny. Lomax? She struggled against the magnet more vigorously, with the same result. She screamed to the empty house. Thassodar! And that is the end of chapter 14. So, real quick critique on this, and it might just be the way I read it. It might be how it paced out. This could very easily be two separate chapters. There's a preliminary conversation having to do with Valentina's family, everything that she's going through, and then this secondary conversation with Groat. There is a chapter break between those two, but these could be very easily turned into two separate chapters. I don't think that either section kind of flows within itself. I understand it's all within the same time frame, maybe the same day, but very easily they could be broken up into two separate chapters, and it would run perfectly fine without any interference in the cadence or the flow of the storyline. There's a couple nuances where again, I don't like doing the spelling grammar thing, but the dialogue and the explanations need a little bit more touch up. I love uh, abuela and mom. Uh, it's one of those things where there's another kind of grenade thrown in the room where there should be explanation more so, or there should be a preemptive thought to how we got to this point. It may change as the book goes on further, and how I think about it, but the discussion with abuela about dad being a police officer and dying, that's understandable. I get it. There, you want a backstory to the father, but preemptively, if there's no kind of lead up to Valentina as to why that is a necessity in this story, I don't know if it's needed. It's just one of those kind of like, bloop, it's there. Same thing with the kind of the explanation about her genes and Earth customs about style and everything, not needed when she's in the Jeep. So this is just my interpretation of it. Take it at face value or not. Just see for yourself, read through it again if you need to. But if you've got a story that's just waiting to be read, I want to read it. Send me your unpublished or self-published works to the email address in the description below, and you might be featured in an upcoming episode of I'll Read That. Help me build this community where writers are supporting writers, where writers can hear themselves in, cold reads of their stories. And everybody's story has a shot at being heard. Don't forget, like, subscribe, drop your thoughts in the comments. Your feedback could be a huge help to other writers and helping their stories grow and develop. And just from me to you, keep writing, and I'll read that.
I'll read that, a story to be told, unpublished